So first up, we're going to talk about the main topic of this video and something that a lot of people have been discussing in the past couple days, and that comes to the game keycards and the sales that these companies are experiencing when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. So VGC has an article that says third-party Switch 2 game sales have started off slow, with one publisher selling below our lowest estimates. So first off, before we get into this article, there are a couple of things that I think these third parties have to keep in mind. One, there isn't 150 million Nintendo Switch 2s out there. That's the Nintendo Switch 1. There's very limited stock for the Nintendo Switch 2 currently as well. Another thing, things are more expensive, so people obviously aren't going to be buying as much games for the Nintendo Switch 2, especially with the price increases. I'm talking about the games that are $70 now. On top of that, these are Nintendo Switch 2 versions of games that they may already own, so they're not going to go and buy Nintendo Switch 2 versions, especially if there's some kind of upgrade option, which would be a lot cheaper than buying a whole new game, right? And then of course, on top of that, you have the game keycard situation. Some people just don't want to buy game keycards. So there are multiple factors I think that are going on here. I do have a headline under the main one that says Cyberpunk 2077 has enjoyed some success on Switch 2. However, third-party games have reportedly struggled to sell on Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, with one publisher claiming that its game has sold below our lowest estimates. And one thing on that, there's always going to be that bottom person who sells the least compared to everyone else. More than likely, whoever that publisher was probably a game that not a lot of people were interested in or already owned. I'm sure there's other factors with that, but that's just one of them. But anyways, continuing with the article, while the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware has enjoyed record-breaking launch sales, some third-party publishers have reportedly found that the console's success hasn't translated to a thriving third-party market yet. And again, I don't know why they thought it was going to be a thriving market. The console just launched. Not everyone is able to get their hands on it, and it's more expensive than the original Nintendo Switch, meaning that price to the entry point for the Nintendo Switch 2 is higher than it originally was when the release for the Nintendo Switch 1. Also, things are more expensive, so people probably have other priorities compared to a new console, especially if they already have the Nintendo Switch 1, right? They already have access to the games that are going to be coming out, for the most part anyways. There are some games that are only for the Nintendo Switch 2, but for the most part, they do have access to these games on the Nintendo Switch 1. So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. In the news report for the game business, it's claimed that other than CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077, most third-party games have struggled to sell on Nintendo Switch 2. Most third-party Switch 2 games posted very low numbers, the report reads. One third-party publisher characterized the numbers as below our lowest estimates despite strong hardware sales. According to the report, 62% of Switch 2 physical game sales in the US during the console's launch week came from first-party titles. And that's another thing. A lot of Nintendo Switch players do buy the Nintendo Switch for the first-party titles. So if they are ever in the situation where they have to choose between some third-party game and then the first-party, a lot of times we'll choose the first-party game because one, it's more than likely going to be a very good game. I think a lot of first-party Nintendo Switch games are very fun and very good. And two, sometimes we already own it on maybe a different console or something. Again, there's multiple factors playing here, and a lot of these factors are against a lot of third-party companies. This excludes the Mario Kart World Bundle, which accounted for the vast majority of console sales in the region. According to the Circana data, the three best-selling physical games in the US during the Switch 2's launch week were Mario Kart World, Cyberpunk 2077, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch 2 edition. And again, yeah, that makes sense. Now, specifically when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077, one, that game received a lot of attention because of what it was doing. That's another thing that you have to keep in mind, is that a lot of these games, the third-party games, are already on the Switch 1, and there isn't significant updates, and it's not a significant thing to run on the Nintendo Switch 2. Cyberpunk 2077 is a new game to the platform. So not only is it a new game, but it also runs really well on the Nintendo Switch 2. It had a lot of coverage, which means it had a lot of marketing, and a lot of positive marketing, and when those two things combine, you're gonna get a lot of sales because there's so many people wanting to try it out for themselves. Not only that, but it also comes with the DLC too, so that's just another thing that added on. Like, for me, if I had enough money to actually buy the game, I'm currently renting it from GameFly, I would have bought it at launch. I have it on PS5, but I don't have a DLC, so that's just another extra reason on top of already having a portable version of the game and it looking already fantastic on the Switch 2 to buy into Cyberpunk 2077. So as far as that game being in the top 3, I think that's why it did so well. Again, multiple factors in favor of Cyberpunk 2077. With that being said, let's continue. Nelson IQ data shows that in the UK, 86% of Switch 2 physical games sold in the UK during the launch were first-party games. If Mario Kart World Bundle is included, if it's excluded, the figure is 48%. Cyberpunk 2077 was the best-selling third-party game in the UK during the system's launch. And again, like I said, it had a lot of things going for it. Then the article goes into the stuff that we already mentioned during the first part of the article. Things like the lack of media reviews for the Switch 2, which again, that's marketing, that's getting your game out there. But I think the most thing that a lot of people are focusing on is the game keycard format. The lack of media reviews of third-party Switch 2 games, the resistance by some players to accept the game keycard format. Let me know in the comment section below if you did actually skip on a game because of game keycards. I'm really curious on which one, or not which one, I don't know why I said which one. I'm curious on how many of you guys did end up doing that. Because when it comes to these games that are game keycards, I probably won't be buying them. I'll be renting them. Again, I'm going to be reviewing them, so I kind of well, you don't have to technically, but it's one way to be able to still play them and get game reviews for you guys and still be able to not waste my money on a game keycard game. Now, when it comes to the top 10 games of Japanese sales charts, this is pretty interesting. Physical Releases over on Twitter said this: no Nintendo Switch 2 game keycards in the top 10 of the Japanese sales charts, remembering that almost all games were released as game keycards here. And yeah, that's one thing that I gotta say, like a lot of people don't want game keycards. Is that the only reason why this is happening? Probably not. Again, the stuff that we discussed earlier in this video, but I think that is one of the things that people have to factor in when they're discussing this topic on why exactly are third-party games not selling as well on the Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, I'm curious on what you guys think about that down in the comments section below, and overall, what are your thoughts on game keycards and this whole situation? With that being said, let's move on to the next topic. So there is some things about Donkey Kong Bonanza that we may have missed, or at least I have missed, so I'm going to mention it in this video. So Stealth40k over on Twitter says this: based on the new screenshot provided by Nintendo, there are likely 5 Bonanza transformations in Donkey Kong Bonanza. Nintendo only showed 3 of them. Considering Donkey Kong can swim, it makes sense that there will be other water-based ones. I thought I would mention that in this video. Let me know what you guys think. Like, what other transformations do you think Donkey Kong's going to have in this game, or do you think there's only 3 of them? With that being said, let's move on to the next topic. Mario Kart World Nintendo Switch Online Wave 3 icons are now available according to My Nintendo News, so if you guys want to scoop some of those up, pick which ones you want, those are now available. And moving on to another rumor, it seems something is happening with Crash Bandicoot. So according to My Nintendo News, rumor in screens appearing stating that Crash Team Racing is getting a big update. A new rumor is doing rounds that the team at Microsoft and Activision is preparing a new big Crash Team Racing update for the current generation of consoles. It is titled Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled Grand Prix Edition, and the source of the information has provided some lovely grainy screenshots. The only interesting thing is that the Microsoft and Activision provided updated sales numbers for Crash Team Racing completely out of the blue the other day. Fingers crossed that this particular rumor is legitimate, but as always, stay tuned. And then the person who is leaking this information said, I work for a small studio under Activision and Microsoft. We were assigned this project months ago. I made a Reddit account while using a VPN to cover my ass. I probably shouldn't be sharing this information given the NDA I had to sign, but here goes nothing. I've attached a few pictures I took with some of these things I'm talking about. CTRNF will be coming. Of course, there's a motorcycle that goes by like that. CTRNF will be coming to the PC platforms early 2026. I'm not sure if it will be on Steam, but it will 100% be available on Xbox Game Pass for PC users. A few new characters have been added as a thank you to fans. The original Beanox team has absolutely no hands on what we did with this re-release. We did not tweak the gameplay other than adding a reserve meter. They were nice enough to give us their notes and information about the code, and that was all the contact we had. There is one new track, and it will be released with a Grand Prix along with the new character to unlock, just as the same as it was when the game was released, or first released, I mean. I'm not sure if there's plans for more than one Grand Prix at this time. PS5, Xbox Series X, and Switch 2 will get a proper release for $40. It will not just be a port. The game will be fully playable cross-platform. PS4, Switch, Xbox One users will not be included with this. Sorry, you will have to buy the game on a new-gen console. The Switch 2 port, I'm not really too surprised at. I'm sure a lot of third-party games want to get their... funny enough, this third-party stuff we talked about earlier in this video, but I'm sure a lot of third parties are still looking at the Switch 2 as an investment. Moving on to the last thing that I want to talk about, and something I am really excited for. So Hades 2, the full release is getting close as development enters the final phase. The thing that I'm really excited for is to play on the Nintendo Switch 2. If you guys didn't know, I reviewed the first Hades and I absolutely loved it. If you guys want to watch that will be on my channel. All you gotta do is go out and search it. It should appear on there. And man, I really absolutely loved it. So the fact that it's in its final phase of development means we are getting closer and closer to that release for Hades 2. And when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, I am 100% buying it. First day, definitely. I mean, Hades 1, I got really addicted to that, and I put so much hours into it. It was so fun, man. I remember staying up almost all night just playing on it and just having a great time, especially on the Nintendo Switch 1 because it's portable. It was really fantastic back then. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about today's topics in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.